Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on what time you're watching this. My name's Connor from 905 Review. You guys are checking out our series Give This a Spin, where I recommend you some of my favorite albums. Today we're staying pretty close to home as we check out Canadian pop-punk rockers Billy Talent and their self-titled debut release. Billy Talent formed in Mississauga, which is part of the Greater Toronto Area, where they would record their first album, which... Okay, I lied. It isn't actually this one, but that's because Billy Talent isn't actually their first identity. They originally went by the name Pez, under which they would release the album Watouche, funded by frontman Ben Kowalowicz working at Toronto radio station 102.1 The Edge, and guitarist Ian Dessaw having worked as an animator on the infamous Canadian cartoon Angela Anaconda. Pez was forced to change their name after being approached by an American band with the same name who had already been using it for a decade, and thus Billy Talent was born. Kowalowicz's connections from working at The Edge helped them get signed by Atlantic, and so here we are. With that being said, let's get into the tunes. The album quickly builds steam with the opening track, This Is How It Goes. It's got this great drive to it, and the band's own sound becomes evident early on. They amp things up further at the chorus in what would be the first of many times across the album that Kowalowicz showcases his fantastic screaming voice. And I am only just finding out that the song is inspired by people dealing with lifelong illnesses, not excluding the band's own drummer, Aaron Solowaniuk, who has to deal with multiple sclerosis. It's bitter, but it's also almost redeeming. To live with a condition like this, the world is essentially telling you, this is how it goes, deal with it. But as the song states, you can fight right back, because they can sell your body, but they can't sell your soul. After the second iteration of the chorus, it drops down into this nice bridge where we hear some solid vocal harmonies. Strong tune, one of the best on the album, and a great pick to open with. This takes us to the second song then, Living in the Shadows, where we hear both a clean-cut guitar and a much rougher one as the two trade back and forth. And in the song, the band addresses the irony of people who aren't even true to themselves and they will just hop on whatever fad is popular at the time, yet will still try to tell you how to go about your own life. Next is a significant song in the band's discography. Try Honesty was one of the first ones written since changing identities, and it was the first single put out as Billy Talent. It's catchy enough, and I see the appeal, but admittedly, I'm not super crazy about this one. It is, however, a great example of the chemistry Kowalowicz and Dessaw have as they trade vocals back and forth on it, as they would go on to do often over the course of the next 20 years. Like I said, already not a fan, but the bridge on this doesn't do it many favors either. A screaming Ben then starts the fourth song, Line and Sinker, again trading quick fire words with Dessaw. It's another one that's not my favorite. Don't like the chorus. Don't like Kowalowicz's delivery during the verses. But the post-chorus is at least a bit of a highlight. After this is a brighter, a little bit softer song, Lies. And man, the verses here are a miss for me too. Not only that, I would say the chorus as well. It sounds just almost goofy, I would say. It sounds like a kind of sarcastic chant. Upbeat and cheery, but about lying.
Lies make it better. Lies are forever. Lies to go home to. Lies to wake up to. Lies from the altar. Lies make it falter.
So for a song I'm so against, the bridge has no business being as good as it is, somewhat redeeming the song.
Lies will come back to haunt you. Bulletproof your liberty.
Closing the first side of the album and taking us out of this rut is its second single, The X. The verses are mediocre, I'll say. Not bad, but at the same time, nothing special.
It's how I sat in my room for 27 days. No, she never called. I had something to say. No, she never called. I had something to say.
At this point, you might be thinking, Connor, what the hell? I thought you were recommending us albums that you do like. And I mean, it might not sound like it at the moment just because I have ragged on it a little bit, but I do enjoy this album, rest assured. It's just that, admittedly, I'm not even that much of a pop punk guy. I kind of find it to be like the lowest form of punk. So just bear that in mind. I mean, the chorus here ain't that bad. The lyrics are just kind of standard. A girl wronged me, my life sucks now, and I hate her.
I don't know much, and I don't know how. Why would she put me through such torture? I would have given my life for her.
Opening the second side of the album, we have the third single, River Below. Right off the bat, it establishes itself as one of the hardest songs on here. And don't worry, I do enjoy this one. I'm just conflicted to learn it's about mentally unstable outcasts desiring to make themselves known, if you catch my drift. This is followed by a slower yet equally hard song, Standing in the Rain.
My head, it hurts. Each day it's getting worse.
Things do ease up during the verses where Kowalowicz is describing the life of a prostitute. Can I say that? Is that PG enough? He's describing the life of somebody who exchanges services for money. Okay, I guess that's a lot of jobs. He's describing someone, perhaps a lady, perhaps at night, perhaps on a street corner. You get what I'm saying. As the song progresses, though, we see that this profession / lifestyle isn't exactly all that glamorous, as she's been on the run for a long time and is abusing hard drugs.
No, pretty baby, how could you? Standing in the rain. Milk carton, mugshot, baby, missing since 1983.
This is where the album truly redeems itself. It had a rough go, but I mean, the run of River Below, Standing in the Rain, and now Cut the Curtains is such a solid stretch. And I don't know what it is, because I've heard probably every other song on this album be talked about at some point by people I know, yet nobody ever brings up Cut the Curtains, which maybe it's just forgettable for some reason, but spoiler, it's probably the best song on here. It's got a great pace to it with these low rumbling guitars, and the chorus sounds great as well. There's a solo after the second telling of the chorus, and then the song slowly dies out with an outro. Except it's actually just a bridge, because out of nowhere, by surprise, they come back in full force.
There is no doubt you throw your inbox out. There is no doubt you throw your inbox. Cut the curtains, the actors have gone on.
The 10th track now, we have Prisoners of Today. It's a pretty banging tune and has a guitar that I would describe as feeling pretty sad or down. I wish they would have kept the slower pace from the chorus in the verses too, but I guess that's probably just pop punk for you.
I never brought up more than I got you, but then she bit my leg. She said, don't wanna work, I wanna play and live my life like it was Sunday.
And said chorus might even be the best one on the album, especially the extended one with the two singers going back and forth. It's a strong song, but I feel like it had potential to be even better. It is, however, winning me over more than it ever had before because, honestly, this is one that I never gave a whole lot of attention to. This takes us to the album's final single, and an ever sad one at that, Nothing to Lose. It truly is a hard-hitting song where somebody young, just entering adulthood, feels as though they have nothing to lose and they just simply end things. It's apparently based on a true story where a 15-year-old tragically did the same. Important reminder to be a friend and not a bully.
Kids just love to tease. Oh no, it put me underground at 17.
And major props to the band for A, writing the song, but furthermore B, donating $1 to Kids Help Phone every time the song was played on the radio. Very sad stuff for the most emotional song on the album, but nonetheless one of the best. Picking the speed back up, we end things here with Voices of Violence. And while it's a good song, it hardly seems like one to close the album with, especially with how great a closer Nothing to Lose would have been.
Don't wait for a knight in shining armor, your saviors.
This album is easy to come across on CD. Well, I say easy, but I live in Canada. It might be a different story elsewhere. But vinyls were definitely a different story. According to Discogs, there was a lone North American run upon the album's 2003 release, and then nothing else for another 10 years. However, that wouldn't be much help either, as it was just a special anniversary edition, a red and yellow splatter limited to only 300 copies. Thankfully, though, it was put out again in 2019 on 180 grams, and if you were a lucky collector, you might have gotten one of 1,000 transparent copies. Billy Talent became a hit nationally, first entering the Canadian albums chart at the 6th spot, and it has since stood the test of time. It's gone 4 times platinum here, as well as being one of the 40 best-selling Canadian albums within the country. There are few reviews of the album out there, generally ranging from moderate to heavy favorites, but German magazine Rock Hard included it in their top 500 rock and metal albums of all time only 2 years after its release, so that's something. So I've got some praise for this thing, but of course, a lot of songs I don't need as well. While pop punk as a genre might not be totally up my alley, Billy Talent's own sound as a band and their distinctive dual vocalist style is certainly to be admired. With that being said, I'm going to stamp this album with a B grading. I remember liking it a lot more when I was younger, but as we've seen here, going through it again, there certainly is a weak stretch in there. The weak end to the first side of the album is in such stark contrast to the whole second side, where every song is good, some even great, but I mean, again, why end on Voices of Violence? You had such a fitting mood and a dramatic closure set up there, all completely undone by sneaking in one last song. Furthermore, one thing I can't ignore, and I can't even take credit for because it was brought to my attention before studying the album, My girlfriend pointed out how weak a lot of their lyrics are. I mean, sure, there's some solid lines, but there's probably just as many that make me cringe, even on songs that I enjoy. But those have just been my thoughts on Billy Talent's self-titled debut. Let me know yours. As always, I appreciate you being here. And we'll see you in the next one. But, real quick, before we take off, as always, I gotta ask, what did you think of Billy Talent? Did I rate it too high? Did I rate it too low? You make sure to let me know down below, as well as any other thoughts you might have, or even album recommendations. I'll be sure to check them out. You take it easy.